Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, there was a little mouse named Milo, who loved two things more than anything else in the world: cheese and space. Every night before bed, Milo would lie in his nest of shredded paper and stare at the moon, dreaming of what it would be like to take a big bite out of that giant ball of cheddar up in the sky. One day, while rummaging through the recycling bin behind the cheese shop where he worked, Milo found an old rocket ship made out of spoons and soda cans. He spent weeks restoring it until it gleamed like a freshly polished mirror. Then one night, after closing up shop, Milo got into his spacesuit, which just so happened to be an oversized toilet paper roll. He climbed into the rocket ship and blasted off into space with a rumbling noise that sounded exactly like a mouse squeak. Milo flew past shooting stars and constellations, each one more spectacular than the last. Finally, he reached the moon and prepared to land. But when his rocket touched down, instead of a soft cheese-like surface, he hit rock bottom. Milo stepped out of his rocket ship to find himself on a barren, grey, rocky landscape. The moon wasn't made of cheese. It was actually a big, lumpy rock. Just then, a spaceship shaped like a crescent moon landed gracefully beside Milo, and out stepped Luna, an alien with silver skin and antennae that wiggled with excitement. "Greetings, Earth creature," Luna said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "I am Luna, your guide to the moon. How may I help you?" "I'm here to get some cheese," Milo replied, holding out his tiny paw. "You see, the moon is made of cheese, or so I've heard." Luna tilted her head, her antennas drooping. "Oh dear, that sounds like a rumor started by a silly star-struck squirrel. No, the moon is not made of cheese. In fact, the only cheese on this moon is in this rock right here." She pulled a small rock from her pocket and split it in half to reveal a single speck of cheddar. "Would you like a taste?" Milo looked at the tiny piece of cheese, then back up at the huge, cheesy moon. A tear rolled down his cheek. His whole life had been a lie. Then he took the rock from Luna and nibbled on the cheese, surprised to find it tasted like the finest aged cheddar he'd ever tried. "How did you bring cheese to the moon?" he asked Luna, wiping his mouth with a leaf. "It wasn't me," she said. "This cheese was brought here by a little girl named Luna. She visits the moon every night before bed, bringing a little bit of cheese to leave behind for whoever might find it." Milo finished the last bite of cheese, feeling disappointed in himself for believing a silly rumor. He hadn't even brought any cheese with him to share, and now all he could think about was how much cheese he would get to eat on the ride home. "Hey, Luna," Milo began. "I was wondering if maybe we could go exploring a bit first. You know, make a few stops along the way." "Exploring?" Luna raised an eyebrow. "But I thought you came here for the cheese." "Well, I did, but—" Milo hesitated. He didn't want to admit he'd come for nothing more than a cheesy dream. So he changed the subject. "Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about the universe? Like, do you have any moons?" And so Milo and Luna set off across the moon's rocky surface, stopping at craters and mountains along the way. Luna told Milo all sorts of amazing stories about the moon and the universe, and Milo learned more than he'd ever dreamed possible. Eventually, they came to a tall mountain peak, and Luna stopped to admire the view. "This is my favorite place on the moon," she said. "I can see so far from here." Milo took a deep breath, realizing how lucky he was to have met her. All his life, he'd wanted to explore space, but he'd never dared to dream that he'd get to travel beyond the solar system. Now he was standing on the moon with an alien who knew the universe like the back of her scaly hand. Then Milo noticed something strange. In the distance, it looked like someone or something was scampering around on top of a nearby boulder. He squinted his eyes, trying to get a closer look. "What's that over there?" he asked Luna. She followed his gaze and smiled. "Oh, that's just Cosmo. He likes to pretend he owns the moon." As they watched, a little grey alien hopped onto the highest point of the boulder and waved his arms in the air. "Look at me," he shouted in a squeaky voice. "I am the great Emperor Cosmo I, ruler of the entire cosmos. Bow before me, lesser beings." Luna rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Don't pay any attention to him," she said to Milo. "He's just a little guy with a big imagination." But then Milo had an idea. He ran over to the boulder and called out, "Hey, Cosmo, maybe you own the moon, but I own this rock right here. Want to buy some cheese?" Cosmo turned around and gasped when he saw the huge wheel of cheese in Milo's paws. "Cheese," he whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. "I've always wanted to see real cheese. Can I touch it?" "Sure," Milo said with a smile. And Cosmo spent the next hour bouncing around on the cheese, giggling with delight. Finally, he flopped down on top of it, exhausted. "That was the best day I've ever had," he said to Milo. "You should come back tomorrow. We can explore the whole moon together." "I'd like that," Milo replied, feeling happier than he had in a long time. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the lunar surface, Milo and Luna walked back to his rocket ship. "I'm so glad I got to meet you, Milo," she said. "You're the first Earth creature I've ever met." "Me too," Milo replied. "Tell me, do you think I could come visit again sometime?" Luna blushed and fiddled with her antenna. "Of course," she said. "I'll see you next time." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Milo to climb into his rocket ship and blast off back to Earth. As he soared through space, Milo couldn't stop smiling. He hadn't gotten to eat moon cheese, but he'd made a new friend and learned that the universe was full of wonders. When he landed back on Earth, Milo went straight to the cheese shop where he worked. He told the other mice all about his adventures on the moon, and they all listened with wide-eyed wonder. But when Milo mentioned that he'd seen aliens, the other mice just laughed and said he'd been spending too much time looking at the stars. So Milo kept his adventures a secret, knowing that only those who dare to dream big and follow their curiosity will ever know the truth. From then on, Milo continued to visit the moon every night, meeting new friends and learning all sorts of amazing things about the universe. He even brought along some of his favorite cheeses to share with the aliens he met. And though he never did get to eat moon cheese, he discovered that the greatest flavors in the universe were friendship and adventure. One day, while Milo was telling his co-workers about a new planet he'd discovered, a wise old mouse named Cheddar approached him. "Milo," he said in a low voice, "I heard you talking about your adventures on the moon. I want to tell you something." Milo stopped mid-sentence and looked at the older mouse. "What is it, Cheddar?" "You remind me a lot of myself when I was young," Cheddar said, chuckling. "I used to dream of exploring space just like you." Milo's eyes widened. "Really? You dreamed of going to space?" "Of course," Cheddar replied with a wink. "Who doesn't? But I never had the courage to follow my dreams. I was too afraid of what I might find. But you, Milo, you're not afraid of anything, are you?" Milo thought about this for a moment. "Actually, I am afraid of one thing," he said. "Oh, really? What's that?" "Running out of cheese," Milo replied with a grin. And the other mice laughed, knowing that Milo would never change. He would always be a little mouse with a big dream and an even bigger love for cheese. The end. If you liked this story, be sure to stay tuned for more. Also, please consider giving us a thumbs up because it really helps us grow. Thanks for watching. See you next time.